You are listening to Fast Track Podcast, the place to be to fast track your personal finance or fast track your business, or both, through a series of conversations with those who have learned it, done it, and made it. Millennial Money Woman, also known as Fiona, she's an entrepreneur and work traveler. Thanks to her healthy finance habits, she bought her home at the age of 23 and is now on her way to become a millionaire in just a few years. As a certified financial planner, Master of Science Personal Financial Planning, and Chartered Retirement Planning Counselor, she wants to help young professionals have what she didn't growing up. A guiding hand to help make the right financial decisions now, so that their future will be a seamless ride. In this episode, we talk about how anyone can become a millionaire with the dollar cost averaging strategy, common money myth, and the mindset differences between the rich and poor. Welcome to Fast Track Podcast, Millennial Money Woman.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Shall I call you Fiona?
You can call me Fiona, yes.
So I want to know that how did you get started? Why are you interested in personal finance? What got you into this topic?
Definitely. So for me, my story actually started with my grandparents, and they were the driving force that got me into finance. And what happened was when I was probably 10 years old or so, I saw them firsthand, right? They built up their business together. It's a small local business over in Europe, actually. And they worked every day to build this business. And unfortunately, due to some poor financial planning, they lost their business and more. So they mortgaged their house. They just lost everything. Essentially, they were homeless by the time they were 75 or 80. And when I saw them go through basically the ups and the downs, right, of life, specifically as it relates to finance, that was, I think, really the push in my life that had me start to think, how can I prevent something like that, the financial ruin, essentially, that they went through? How can I prevent that ruin from happening to me, my family, and anyone else that I can help? And this wasn't kind of a thought process that happened overnight, obviously. It was something that really, happened over a couple of years. And when I was in college, I really started to get interested in finance, not so much to make money at first, but more so to figure out how can you use money to build more money for your future and, secure a future where you don't have to worry about living on the streets, or you don't have to worry about the future cost of healthcare, because in America, long-term care in nursing homes or in hospitals, it's just such a huge cost of living. It's a very, very, a lot of people are worried about running out of money because it's so expensive, the healthcare. And I wanted to figure out, how can I not worry about that when I'm older? And that's kind of what made me really get into finance. And the rest is kind of history. I really love what I do. It's such a passion of mine, and I love seeing people win too. I feel like when I win, everyone else wins, and when everyone else wins, I win. So it's kind of like a mutual relationship.
And you're helping people to build a better financial future.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Yeah, I can really relate to what you're saying before, because it's also something happened to me. I didn't get a chance to realize the importance of personal finance at a younger age, but it's just so many things happened within short period of time that make me realize that, having a healthy finance, having a, something that you can use, I mean, money-wise, savings, investment, to cover some emergency. Even sometimes, when you have enough money, you can receive better treatment or more possibilities to. That was shocking me, really. Like, money equals life, like to live. That really. So I got into this topic. That's why I'm very excited to hear from you as an expert, that you have told me about, you bought your first property when you are 23. So how did you make that happen?
Yes. Well, I know that I'm I'm very lucky to have been able to think very far ahead from a very early stage in my life. So when I was basically 16 years old, that seed that was planted after I saw what happened to my grandparents really started to take ground in my true being, like who I was. And so since I was 16, I started to, save every single penny I could. I invested everything I could. I made a lot of, I guess looking back, I made the right choices, right? So I gave up wearing the nicest clothes. I gave up trying to look the part, and rather I, one, worked as much as I could work, as much as I could find work. Two, I invested as much as I could from an early age. And three, I really started to immerse myself in anything related to financial matters. So my goal was to really get a jump start ahead of my colleagues at that age and even in college, because I wanted to get into life and basically hit the ground running, right? So I think that is really what helped me understand the world in general. And I graduated college almost 3 years early. I got into
What?
the work.
3 years early?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't the best time, I'll be very honest with you, because I was studying day and night, every single day basically. It was rough, but because it was almost 3 years, yeah, early, I got into the workforce at such a young age, was able to make money and look for properties probably for 1 or 2 years in advance. And then I was able to negotiate the price down as well, and that's how I was able to purchase my first house at 23.
Wow, that's very impressive.
Thank you. It was a lot of work, though. I will definitely say it's not easy.
But when you started to learn about personal finance and how you deal with money,
Mhm.
so along the journey, did you notice like what kind of behavior change or mindset change that you have made?
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, I'm gonna be very honest, like, before I really got into finance, I was that person that literally went to the mall every Wednesday with my group of 3 friends. I'm not kidding you, this is real. And we were like, "Oh, what can we buy? The coolest clothes and everything." So, back then, I was, like, really focused on appearances, right? I really wanted to look the part. Although I was still in school, I wasn't earning any money, and I was spending much more than anything I could have, brought in. But once I studied finance, and once I really immersed myself, and once I started meeting people who were successful in finance, and I found my mentor as well, who was such a powerful influence, positive influence on my life. Like you said, my mindset totally changed. And what specifically changed was how I think of money. And the way I think of money is in terms of time. So when I spend, I don't know, $100, for example, when I spend $100, I don't think of it as $100. I think of it as I just spent 3 hours or however many hours of my life on this shoe or on this dress or whatever. So when you think about spending money in the form of spending your time, how much of your life it took you to earn that money to buy that dress, it's a totally different perspective. And I think that made me really change my money behavior.
Right. And then what do you think are the biggest money myths held by other people if they have not made that realization?
Yeah, so I can tell you for sure. I've worked with a lot of millennials. Obviously, I'm a millennial too, and there are a couple of myths that seem to be very recurring, right? So the theme is it always pops up the more I talk with millennials. So a couple of them, for example, are you need to buy a house to be financially successful. And I know you and I were just talking about houses, obviously. For me, it's always been a dream to have a house and to build it, hold it, and then sell it. So for me, it was kind of like an investment. But for a lot of other millennials that I've spoken to, the only reason why they want a house is because to them, that means they've made it. And I think that's a myth in some sense because, in America, at least, and I'm sure in other parts of the world as well, you don't necessarily need a house rent, right? Like you said, you don't really need a house. You can be very happy and successful if you rent. And I think that there are a lot of positives when you rent as well. I mean, you have flexibility. You don't need to worry about the upkeep. You can move if you want to. You don't have to go through the whole, I mean, in America, at least it takes like 1, 2, 3 months or more to finalize the paperwork and, talk to your real estate agent. It's just such a long process. So owning a house isn't always made out to be that wonderful. And I can tell you firsthand, as being a homeowner, it's not that wonderful a lot of times. But I think that's the number one big myth to bust here. It's owning a house is not always the best thing. So you don't always have to own a house. The second thing that I've seen often with millennials is kind of this fallacy that, saving can wait for tomorrow. A lot of times that when I mentor and coach my millennial peers, they tell me the reason why they don't save or save every penny that they can is because they don't earn a lot of money today. But they say, well, in 1 or 2 years, I'll be earning more money. So that's when I can really be putting away a lot of money for saving. And I say that this is where we kind of get into a conversation. And I think it really matters not how you treat $1,000, right? When you really make a lot of money. What matters is how you treat $10. If you're able to hold on to $10, let's say if you only earn $30,000 a year or whatever your salary is right now, you should still be looking at your salary the same way that you would at a $300,000 salary. In other words, if you earn $30,000 today, and if you can save 30% or 20% of your income, that's a healthy money habit. And that will translate over to a much larger salary at like $300,000 because you'll be implementing the same behavior when you earn more as when you did when you earned much less. So a lot of it just starts building up, right? So a lot of people say, I can save for tomorrow. Start today. That is so, so important.
Yeah, I heard that a lot. I think it also applies to retirement planning when you are young.
Yes.
Or think,
Yes.
I have time. I have like 40 years ahead of me to work and save for retirement.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's with millennials, I know, I mean, myself included, I'll be very honest, like retirement seems so far off. And it is. I mean, it's like 4 decades or 5 decades away, right? Long, long time away. But I think a lot of times we fail to realize the mathematics behind it, where if you start investing in the stock market today, right, even if you're 20 or 25 or however old you are, you have to save much less today in order to get to your $1 million goal or $2 million goal or whatever it is in the future, versus if you started just 5 years later or 10 years later. And that's the time value of money and compounding interest. It's like Albert Einstein said, it's the 8th wonder of the world, practically.
Yeah, I think if you don't really calculate it and put the numbers down on a spreadsheet, you don't see how powerful it is. It's just in your mind, like, oh, maybe there will be some money in the future. But when people really see the doubled, tripled in 20 years, 30 years, that can make a huge impact how they look at it.
That's absolutely right. Yeah. And I love how you mentioned the spreadsheet part. Like, I think it's so important for, especially people that maybe aren't that familiar with money. It's really helpful to write things down or put things on a spreadsheet, like you said. And there's this strategy called the dollar cost averaging strategy, which basically has you put money into the stock market or an investment over a certain period of time, right? Consistently. So like every 2 weeks or every month or whatever it is, you put money into the stock market. And to your point about starting early for retirement in the future, if you're, for example, 25 years old and you invest $205 every 2 weeks or $410 every month, and you do that for 40 years, you're going to be a millionaire. And I mean, it's not that much money if you think about it, right? $205 every 14 days. Like you can make that happen if you start, saving somewhere, maybe spending less in other areas. And that $1 million goal is going to become a reality if you stick with that plan.
Right. Actually, I want to ask you, like, how, like a millennial, how can someone aged between 20 to 30 can become a millionaire? You just gave me the answer.
Oh, I'm glad.
Imagine the person, instead of 200 or 400 per month, you put 800 per month, or you put 600 per month. You can accelerate, right? It's not going to take 40 years, you said?
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. You can accelerate that. But, and even so, let's say you're struggling, right? $410 per month. That sounds like a huge number. But if you break that down, right? If you're 25 and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I have to save $410 a month. Well, let's break it down. What does that mean that you have to save per day? That's really only $13.66 a day. And like when you think about it that way, when you break down those big, big goals into small, little attainable steps, I think everyone can somehow find $13 a
Right.
day, right?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you sell something in your house that you don't need anymore and that takes up space, or you don't go to the restaurant, you don't buy coffee or whatever it is, right? But you can do that. It's manageable.
Yeah. And then that leads to my next question is, so in order to save $13 per day, but what do you think are the most common spending habits that people should avoid? So that could result in the $13 per day, right?
Absolutely. Yes. I love how this conversation is going. So how can you stop spending money? Well, yeah, like you said, let's actually start why people spend money. Um, there are many different reasons why people spend money, but in at least from what I've seen, the number one reason why people spend money has to do with emotions. So people are in general very emotional, right? Like our behavior is very emotional driven, even when it comes to investing. A lot of people are like, oh, well, I had a great experience with Nike. That's why I want to invest in Nike, or whatever it is. It's very emotional. And the same goes for our spending patterns. So, for example, from my experience mentoring millennials, I've seen the common reasons for overspending to include instant gratification. So they want to feel good right now. That's why they want to spend right now. Number two is addiction. So, like, they are addicted to, I don't know, getting yoga pants. They always want the newest yoga pants. So they go out there and they go spend that money. Number three is keeping up with the Joneses. That's kind of like you want to feel good about yourself because you are quote unquote better than the other people out there, right? So you're always trying to buy the newest stuff, the newest car, the newest whatever it is, in order to feel good about yourself. The fourth reason is to show love. And it's, you want to show love to your partner, but if it's the right partner, you don't always need to spend so much money on them. If they truly love you for who you are, they don't need materials, right? So that's another one. And then there are a couple of other reasons too, like relieving bad feelings. I know a lot of millennials, a lot of women that I work with, when they have a bad day, myself included too, we go out and we want to buy something to feel better. Whatever it is, we go out and buy stuff. But instead of buying, a way to kind of combat that is go for a walk, refresh your brain, try to breathe in some fresh air and get those emotions out. Because again, most of the time, emotions is the number one reason why we overspend.
Right. And also, you see, if you watch some dramas, TV shows, movies, and they're always promoting, oh, let's go shopping. Oh, don't feel upset, honey. Let's go shopping.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah, you nailed it spot on. Like, I think the media too oftentimes tries to compel a lot of people to go out and spend money because you deserve it. You deserve a new car. You deserve this. And it's like, I'm sure you deserve it because you work hard, but there are other cost effective ways to spend your money instead of, buying a brand new car, for
Mhm,
example.
mhm. And then, what do you see are the most common uh, things that you think people should avoid spending money on it that is not necessary? It can be small, can be big ones.
Yeah. That's a great question, by the way. I think the number one thing is probably spending money on a new car. So I'll share a story. One of my actually good friends, I think she got out of law school a couple of years ago. So she probably spent 6 to 7 years studying in law school. And she finally got her degree. She finally got, a decent paying job. And I hear her. I understand how she feels. Finally, she's, making money. But the first thing she did that when she earned this money was buy a brand new Audi, right? This beautiful car, gorgeous. But I think there were much better ways that she could have used that money, such as paying off her student debt or her credit card debt. Instead, she went out and bought a brand new car. And I think the reason why buying a new car, and this is nothing against Audi, it's just like, whatever new car you buy, typically speaking, that's a depreciating asset, which means the second you buy it and the second you drive that new car off of the auto dealer's parking lot, it already depreciates like $10,000-$20,000 or however much
Yeah.
this car originally was, right? You already lost money. So why do you want to spend your money on something new when instead you could be buying a used car, have someone else take the depreciation hit, and you buy it for a fairly good price and the car's still in like decent shape? So that's the number one thing I see people lose their money on, is just buying brand new cars.
Yeah, it also reminds me of the episode I did with Arthur Purpose. And then he also recognized that this is
Yes.
number one mistake people make. It's buying a brand new car.
Absolutely. Yeah. When I looked at her car bill, I'm not going to lie, it was more than what I pay for my house, like insurance
Wow.
and the car. Yeah. It's incredible. But I think a lot of people make that mistake, but it's also because, again, like you said, the media really pushes us. It's kind of like a social peer pressure type thing. So I
Yeah.
don't blame them, but it's, definitely one of the things. And I mean, there are many other things. Like this is something that I saw working with a couple of my millennial mentees, and that is subscriptions. A lot of us, like, I know you would never think subscriptions cause us to lose money, but they actually do. And I saw that because we went through their budget together, like, cent by cent, literally going through every single expense per month. And there was a few people that I saw, they spend probably more than $90 a month on various subscription services, like $4 on a phone app here, $10 on a magazine service here. And, you don't really think of all of that, but in the end, it really adds up to a lot. So in the end, per year, they're spending probably over $1,000 on these subscription services that they don't even need. And I mean, in the big picture, $1,000 probably isn't that much. But then again, if you think about it, in 10 years' time, that $1,000 is $10,000 that they could have saved, invested, or paid off debt. And instead, they're paying subscription services that they don't need. So I think it's also important to, although we want to look at the big picture, like those depreciating cars, it's also important to kind of look at the small things, because small things can add up to larger costs, like subscription services.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, no matter it is small or big, it's about your money mindset, how you use your money. If you spend on small things, even it's $5 coffee, you could do it at home for $1.50, but it's the way how you use your money that makes a difference.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Then I want to ask, so now we talk about, things people should avoid. Then what do you think are the differences between the rich people mindset and poor people mindset? Or like, why rich people, they are rich?
It's something that I was always asking myself too. Why are the wealthy always wealthy? And it seems like their families typically also stay wealthy. So what's the secret? And I was fortunate enough to find a mentor at a very young age, and he's helped me. So he's like 75 years old now, so he's been through the ups and downs of life, and I've had the ability and the opportunity to kind of ask him a few questions, and that's where I kind of put pen to paper and figured out, what really is the difference, poor versus rich. So I'd say number one, what I've seen across the board is the wealthy, they really understand the basic concepts of financial literacy. And I think finance in general, it's kind of like a different language, right? I mean, when I first went into finance, I thought I was speaking a different language. I'll be very honest, because there's so many acronyms, and then there's math also involved. And then it's just so much going on in finance. So I definitely understand it's different and it's scary. And because of that, a lot of people, they want to stay within their comfort zone. They don't want to get out of their comfort zone. And I think that's why a lot of people who maybe haven't made the jump yet stay away from finance, because it's
You mean
uncomfortable.
comfort zone means they are like they don't understand finance. That's why they didn't really learn more about it.
Exactly, because they didn't understand it. Yes.
Okay.
And it's unfortunately, it is very difficult to understand, but if you want to get better at money, I think the first step is understanding a little bit about money. And that's what the wealthy really have in common. They understand the basic workings of how money can make you more money. And they see money as a tool, really. So, for example, the wealthy understand that when you invest money, and you invest it for the long term, typically speaking, at least in the past, it's always grown, it's always compounded. And because they understand that and they have that mindset, I think a lot of them are able to use that long-term mindset to help them make more money in the future. So that's number one, basic financial literacy. The second thing that I've noticed is, and I've spoken about this here earlier too, the wealthy have mentors. Mentors are so, so important if you want to become the best at maybe a niche, or you want to learn about money, or whatever it is that you want to do. Mentors, they give you an upper hand, because they help you save time, because they can share their life experiences with you. You don't have to spend 10 years, figuring out something. You can learn it from them. They can help you save money, because they can give you money saving tips, and they help you save your energy, because they're able to pass down that knowledge and information, that they really, learned throughout decades of their lives to you. And mentors in general are they're super helpful, whatever it is. If it's because you're opening a business, if it's because you're in a certain career path, or you're still in school, mentors are extremely powerful. And then something that I also noticed is the wealthy in general, they pay themselves first. And what that means is, when you receive a paycheck, for example, the wealthy, they automatically route a portion of their paycheck toward their retirement savings or their other investment assets. So instead of, using that paycheck and immediately spending it on whatever it is, fun, games, toys, or whatever it is, they actually first spend it on themselves by investing in their retirement accounts.
Yeah.
Then anything that's left over, they either pay off debt, or they then spend for, daily living expenses, etc. But that's a huge shift in mindset, right? When you get money, first it goes to your retirement savings, then you pay whatever you need to pay in daily living expenses. The
I have
others,
to, sorry to
Mhm.
cut you.
Yeah,
To clarify here for the audience. So pay yourself first does not mean you go shopping, pay yourself.
no. It does not. No, thank
Yeah,
you for saying that. It does not. It means paying your retirement accounts first.
exactly. Okay, please go on.
Yeah, no, I love it. And then I have a lot, but I'll narrow it down to two more. So the other two habits that I see, generally speaking, between the wealthy and the not so wealthy, are one, the wealthy eat healthy. A lot of times I see that, health and wealth really does go together. So they don't really eat, the junk food. They try to stay active. They try to run. They just really try to stay healthy, and not just physically, but also mentally. So your output is what your input is, right? So they try to consume excellent information. So instead of watching shows that might not help fortify their mind, they read books, they read whatever they can in order to educate themselves further, so their work output is also equal of that excellence that they input into their minds, into their brains. So again, health and wealth really do go together. And by health, I don't just mean the body, I also mean the mind. And then the last point here that I'll make is, the wealthy, they also don't really carry bad debt. And bad debt is typically high interest debt. So we're talking credit card debt, for example. That's something that the wealthy, they try to pay off first things first, right? They don't want to carry that with them because high interest debt is an easy way to just lose money because the banks, right, or the credit card companies, they're taking your money away because it's so high interest and it really is a burden on your wealth.
Right. Yeah. And also some of the credit card interest rate in the US is double digit. I read
Oh,
somewhere.
yeah, it's funny that you say that because just today, I got a new credit card statement, and they said they revised a couple of terms and conditions where my credit card interest rate is now 29.99% interest. It's crazy.
Oh my God.
I mean, I don't carry any credit card debt, but still, it's like this is insane. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
imagine if you just invest in a product, if the product gives you 30% ROI return, you have to bear so much risk, right?
Yep.
Just
Yep.
to get 10% return, annual return, it's already pretty amazing. It's an amazing return. But the credit card can easily eat your 30%. This is crazy.
It is. It's literally white collar crime, and most people, like, I have a good friend. She when she first started, she didn't know what credit cards were, really how they worked, because to be very honest, we're not really taught this in school, unfortunately. And so she went out and she bought like $800 of clothes just because on her credit card. And like then she was slapped with this, whatever it was, 24% interest rate on her credit card at least. And it's like it just eats away at your wealth, right? It's not worth it. Not worth it. Stay away from credit card debt. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for the 4 points. It's very useful. We talk about the mindset between the wealthy and the poor. And I would like to ask for average person if they have not learned personal finance and they are scared of finance, what tips do you give to them? How can they get started?
Yes, that's a very good question. So, when you start learning finance, I think the number one thing to remember is that it takes time to learn it. So, don't expect of yourself to be the Wall Street expert by day two. Okay, like that's what I thought I was going to do stepping into finance. That I would know the calls and the trades and the puts and the options and be like the best investor. No, in order to step into personal finance, what the best recommendation is one, give yourself time. It's going to be a very long and different mind adjustment because it's a different world. Finance takes just time to understand because of the jargon, right? It's a different language, basically. Number two is try to read the correct information. And by correct information, I mean established sources such as money magazines like Forbes or established personal finance blogs. I mean, there are many out there. NerdWallet is one, Dollar Sprout is another. Obviously, my personal finance blog is also there, the Millennial Money Woman. But there are many good resources that can help you drill down to the basics. And then lastly, something that's also helped me when I first started learning finance is watching YouTube videos. Believe it or not, if you're a visual person and you kind of like hearing people talk about it, YouTube might be a good source for you. And I forgot to mention this as well. The last point, ask someone. This is where a mentor comes into play again. If you want to know and have a little bit more personal input when it comes to finances, find someone from your local community, a local community leader perhaps, or a close or trusted professor, for example, who might know a few things about finance. Pay for their coffee, sit down for an hour for lunch maybe, and pick their brain and ask them a little bit about finance. Those are some really effective ways that have helped me and my mentees excel when it comes to personal finance.
Thank you so much for the advice. And if people would like to learn more about you or read your articles, you bring a lot of valuable content through your social media channels as well. Can you tell them where can they find you?
Absolutely. So there are a couple of places. The first one is my blog, which is themillennialmoneywoman.com. every week I'm releasing 2 to 3 new blog articles about various financial topics. So definitely feel free to read through those. You can also find me on Twitter, and my Twitter handle is at _MMW. And feel free to engage, direct message me, whatever it is. I always love connecting with my audience. And then finally, if you're a Pinterest person, you can also contact me on Pinterest and just type in the Millennial Money Woman and I'll pop right up.
Lovely. Thank you so much for the great, valuable information today. And I'm sure the audience can benefit a lot from it. And I will leave all the links in the show notes so they can reach out to you, they can consume your content, and also they can also learn a little bit about personal finance. Thank you so much, Fiona.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Before letting you go, I have a very exciting news to share with you. I am collaborating with Financial Imagineer to introduce you the Fast Track Money course. This 6-week online course is designed to help young professionals in their 20s to early 40s to learn how to save more, earn more, and invest, so you can use money as a tool to fulfill your dreams. We teach you the proven method that Matthias has been using himself in the last 20 years and achieved financial independence. If he can do it, you can learn the method and do it as well. Sign up for this course on fasttrack.live/money course to transform your relationship with money from today. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Fast Track Podcast. Show me your support by liking this episode and sharing it with your friends. Join the Facebook group at Fast Track Podcast 1, or you can find us on Instagram, YouTube, and of course the homepage fasttrack.live. See you in the next episode.